Imagine waking up tomorrow and hearing this headline. China unveils a new AI chip that's 1,000 times faster than Nvidia and uses a tiny fraction of the power. It sounds like science fiction. It sounds like hype. And honestly, it sounds like one of those tech headlines that's overblown and quietly forgotten a week later. But here's the thing. This one might actually matter. Over the past months, two of China's top universities, Tsinghua and Peking University, have quietly published research on something most people haven't seriously thought about in decades. Analog computing, not digital, not zeros and ones, not traditional GPUs, but chips that compute using raw electricity itself. And the claims are bold: staggering speed, extreme energy efficiency, and a very different future for where AI actually runs. So today we're cutting through the hype and the fear. We'll look at what these analog AI chips really are, what they can realistically do, where they fall flat, and whether they truly pose any threat to Nvidia or to the entire structure of modern computing. And trust me, by the end, you'll see why this isn't a China versus America story at all. It's a story about two completely different futures of AI colliding. Before we go deeper, if you're finding this breakdown useful so far, a quick like and share helps this reach more people who care about where technology and power are heading. It really makes a difference. Now let's start with the real problem that's been holding AI back. And it's not raw computing power. Most people assume GPUs are held back by how fast they can calculate, but that's no longer the true bottleneck. Modern GPUs are already insanely fast at crunching numbers. The real problem today is memory. Every single AI calculation requires data to be pulled from memory, processed, and then pushed back into memory again, over and over. That movement burns enormous amounts of energy and creates delay. It's like having a supercar engine attached to a tiny fuel line. It doesn't matter how powerful the engine is if the fuel can't reach it fast enough. Google tried to reduce this issue with something called systolic arrays in their TPUs. Instead of constantly pulling data from memory, data flows from one part of the chip to the next in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. This helped. But even systolic arrays didn't eliminate the memory bottleneck. They just reduced it. And that's exactly where analog computing enters the picture. Analog chips work in a way that feels almost old-school physics. They don't rely on digital logic, on ones and zeros. Instead, they use Ohm's law, one of the most basic rules of electricity. Current equals voltage divided by resistance. In simple terms, the chip itself becomes the math. Imagine a grid where every intersection holds a tiny electrical component, like a capacitor or a resistive memory cell. Instead of storing AI weights in digital memory, the weights are physically encoded into the resistance of those components. When electricity flows across the grid, the resulting current patterns instantly produce the mathematical result. No memory fetch, no shuttling data back and forth. The calculation happens at the speed of electricity itself. That's why the efficiency claims are so extreme. In theory, these chips can perform massive matrix calculations using only a fraction of the power required by digital GPUs. Different research teams are experimenting with different approaches. Some use resistive RAM, others explore photonic, light-based systems. But they all share one goal: let physics do the computing. And that sounds revolutionary. And it is. But it comes with serious trade-offs. Here's the first major reality check: precision. On paper, analog should offer unlimited precision. Real-world values are continuous, unlike the discrete steps of digital numbers. But the real world is messy. Tiny temperature changes, electrical interference, even microscopic flaws in materials all introduce noise into the system. That noise creates errors. In digital computing, we eliminate small errors because a 1 is a 1 and a 0 is a 0. In analog computing, tiny fluctuations actually matter. There's no perfect rounding. And unlike quantum computers, which have elaborate error correction layers, today's analog AI chips don't yet have robust correction systems. This matters most when it comes to training AI models. Training requires extremely high precision, sometimes 32-bit or even 64-bit floating point accuracy. Analog chips simply can't deliver that kind of reliability right now. And that means they are essentially locked out of large-scale AI training. But when it comes to inferencing, running a model that's already been trained, the precision requirements drop sharply. The industry has already moved from FP32 to FP16, FP8, and now even FP4 for inferencing. That's where analog chips suddenly make sense. Speed? Yes. Efficiency? Absolutely. Perfect accuracy? Not required. And that leads us to their true battlefield, Edge AI. Edge AI means running artificial intelligence directly inside devices instead of in giant data centers. Think of smartphones, security cameras, industrial sensors, medical devices, autonomous machines. Anything that needs AI instantly, without sending data across the internet. This is exactly where analog chips shine. Blistering speed, ultra-low energy use, instant response. So no, these chips are not built to replace Nvidia's data center monsters. They're built to live inside everything else. But there's another problem. One that may be even bigger than precision. Analog chips are extremely inflexible. With a GPU, if you want to run a new model, you upload new software and you're done. With analog hardware, changing the model often means reworking the physical structure of the chip itself. Teams of engineers must remap how weights are stored electrically. It's slow, it's expensive, and it's nothing like the convenience of software updates. Right now, this alone makes analog chips impossible to deploy at large scale without massive automation breakthroughs, which don't exist yet. There's also the issue of narrow specialization. These chips are phenomenal at matrix multiplication. That's the backbone of today's neural networks. But if AI architectures shift away from matrix-heavy designs in the future, analog hardware could quickly become obsolete for mainstream AI. And then there's the biggest wall of all, the software ecosystem. Nvidia didn't just build hardware, it built an empire of tools, libraries, compilers, frameworks, and developer communities through CUDA. That ecosystem is why developers stick with Nvidia even when competitors offer cheaper or faster chips. Switching hardware is painful. Switching paradigms is brutal. Analog computing represents a completely different programming universe. Existing code can't simply be ported over. Entire tool chains must be reinvented. Languages must be rewritten. Debugging becomes far more complex. Building that ecosystem could take a decade or more. So if analog chips are so limited, why is China pushing so hard? The answer is strategy. China is not trying to beat Nvidia in training the world's largest AI models. That race is already dominated by US hyperscalers, Meta, OpenAI, Google, Amazon, and Nvidia is deeply embedded in that infrastructure. China's real focus is on consumer AI and edge deployment. Running AI locally on devices aligns perfectly with the government's vision of integrating AI into daily life by 2030. Surveillance, automation, healthcare, manufacturing, education, and smart cities. And analog chips fit that vision beautifully. There's also a critical geopolitical angle. Because of US sanctions, China's access to advanced chip-making tools, especially extreme ultraviolet lithography from ASML, is restricted. But analog chips don't need the most advanced nodes to deliver their advantages. They can be built using older, more accessible manufacturing equipment. That alone makes them strategically invaluable. They are, in many ways, sanction-resistant. China is also aggressively pushing open-source AI models. The idea is to flip the traditional pyramid of AI value, away from Western hyperscalers and hardware monopolies, and toward mass consumer deployment powered by efficient, locally run models. In other words, forget trillion-parameter cloud monsters. The real revolution might be billions of small, efficient models running everywhere. At this point, pause and think about this for a moment. What happens to the global balance of AI power if intelligence no longer lives in massive data centers, but in every camera, every phone, every machine? That's the real shift hiding underneath the headlines. If you've made it this far, I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts. Do you see analog AI as a genuine breakthrough or just another overhyped lab experiment? Drop your view in the comments. I read everyone. Now let's bring expectations back down to earth. Despite the breathtaking claims, these chips are still deep inside the research phase. No mass production, no global deployment, no consumer devices yet. Realistically, we're probably 3 to 5 years away from early niche products, and closer to 8 to 10 years from any serious mainstream presence. And that's assuming everything goes right, which it rarely does in semiconductor development. There's also a wild card lurking in the background: quantum computing. Some scientists believe today's AI architectures, especially large language models, may never reach true general intelligence, no matter how big they get. People like Roger Penrose argue that consciousness and intelligence may ultimately require quantum-level computation. If that proves true, both GPUs and analog chips could be stepping stones rather than final destinations. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, analog computing is not science fiction. It's real, it's measurable, and it's advancing rapidly. So where does this leave Nvidia? Quite simply, Nvidia isn't worried, and for good reason. Nvidia dominates the training side of AI, which remains the highest value segment of the entire industry. Their GPUs are flexible, their software ecosystem is unmatched. Their relationships with cloud giants are deeply locked in. Even if analog chips perform flawlessly, they don't replace the need to train massive models. They run the finished product. That's not a threat to Nvidia's core business, it's a parallel universe. If anything, analog edge AI could complement Nvidia's cloud dominance rather than disrupt it. And that's exactly why the future of computing isn't going to be purely digital, purely analog, or purely quantum. It's going to be hybrid. Digital for training, analog for edge inferencing, quantum, maybe, for the problems we still don't fully understand. So what's the real conclusion here? Analog AI chips are not hype. They are a genuine technological breakthrough with the potential to dramatically reshape where and how AI runs. They offer incredible speed, extraordinary efficiency, and a path toward truly local, real-time intelligence. But they are not a silver bullet. They struggle with precision. They lack flexibility. They face an enormous software ecosystem gap, and they are years away from wide adoption. They will not dethrone Nvidia. They will not replace digital computing. They will carve out a powerful new lane beside it. China's strategy reflects that reality. It's not betting everything on one path. It's pushing digital, analog, and eventually quantum technologies at the same time, hedging against uncertainty while accelerating consumer-focused AI deployment. And that's the bigger story here. This isn't about one chip beating another. It's about where intelligence lives in the future. In massive centralized servers, or embedded quietly into everything around us. That question will shape economics, geopolitics, and daily life for decades. And the race has only just begun. If this breakdown helped cut through the noise and gave you real clarity, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell so you don't miss what's next. And thank you very much for watching.